How to crochet a granny square. This is the method that I use, and it gives you a nice seamless look, and it should prevent it twisting as you work across the rounds. This will be in US terms. So firstly you want to make your slip knot, and then we are going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to slip stitch into that very first chain to create a little circle, a little loop. You can use the magic loop for this if you prefer. I just find this a little bit more secure. And we're going to work our first round into that hole there. So to start, we're going to chain 2, and that is going to count as our first stitch, and then we want to 2 double crochets into that circle. So here is our first one, and then our second one. So that gives us a group of 3 stitches, which becomes the first side of the square. And then we're going to do a corner, so chain 2, and then we're going to do 3 more double crochets into that circle. So there's 1 and 2, and you can crochet over the little tail, that's fine, and 3, and then we're on to another corner, so we're going to chain 2 again, and then 3 more double crochets into that loop. So this will be our third side for our square, and then we want another corner, so we're going to chain 2, and then the final set of 3 double crochets in the circle to give us the final side of our square. And then for our final corner we want to chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chains that we did at the very beginning. There we go. So as you can see, we've got 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on each side we have got 1 group of 3 double crochets. For the next round, round 2, we're going to have 2 groups on each side. So I'll show you what I mean. We're going to turn our work, we're going to slip stitch into that space, and then we want 1 group of 3 in this chain space, and we'll do another one in the next chain space in a second. So we're going to chain 2, do 2 double crochets into that same space. That's our first group for this side, and then we're going to move to the next chain space and do 3 double crochets in there. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. And remember, we're on round 2, so we know we've got 2 groups, which means we've come to our corner. So we're going to chain 2, and whenever we chain 2, we know it's a corner, we know that our next set is going to share the same space as the set we just did. So 3 double crochets in that same space, and that's how we create the corner. And then we go into the next chain space. There's 1, 2, and 3, and again, if we look, since our last corner we've got 2 groups of 3, and this is round 2, so we know we're at a corner, so we're going to chain 2, and again we know that means that our next group of 3 goes in the same chain space. So 1 and 2 and 3, and then we move over to the next space and do 3 more double crochets. And of course we've got 2 groups again because we're on round 2, so we're our next corner, so we chain 2 and 3 double crochets again in that same space because we are in a corner. There we go. And then on to our next space, 3 double crochets in there, and this is our last one. There is the third one, so let's have a quick look. So as you can see, each side has 2 groups and then a corner, 2 groups and then a corner, 2 groups and then a corner, 2 groups, so we've just got our final corner to do. So chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of the original chain 2. And actually you can use a stitch marker when you do that chain 2 at the beginning of the row so that you know where you're joining to, if it makes it a bit easier for you. So we slip stitch into there. So now we're on to round 3. We're going to turn our work and we're going to slip stitch into that space like we did last time. And because we're on round 3, we know we're going to want 3 groups of 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, on each side. So we're going to chain 2 double crochets into that same space. That is our first group for this side. Into the next space, 3 double crochets, and then into the next space. At this point we can kind of see it's a corner anyway, so counting the groups of stitches is handy for the first few rounds, just to make sure you get the corners in the right place. So there you go, 1, 2, 3 groups, so we know we're at a corner. We're going to chain 2, and again we know that we want the next one in that same space because we've just done a corner. There we go, and then we want 3 double crochet in the next space. You're probably getting the idea now. And then 3 double crochet into the next space, which will be our third set of 3, and of course we're on round 3, so we know that is the final one before our next corner. So chain 2, and again in that same space we do 3 double crochets because we are at a corner. And then 3 double crochets in that next space. I'm going a bit quicker because you're probably getting the idea now. And then 3 double crochet in the next space. Again, we are on round 3, so we know that this being our third one since the last corner, 1, 2, 3, we are at our next corner. So chain 2, 3 double crochet in the same space because it is a corner. There we go, 3 double crochet in that next space. There we go, and 3 double crochet in that final space. Again, you can add a stitch marker at the beginning of the round when you do that chain 2, just in case you want to see it easier. And there we go. Let's chain 2, slip stitch to that beginning chain. And let's have another quick look. So we have got 3 groups and then a corner, 3 groups and then a corner, another 3 corner, another 3 corner, and that is because it's round 3. I'm going to do one more round and then show you. So that was round 4. I'm just going to fasten off and then snip my yarn. There we go. So as you can see, for round 4 we had 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 3 double crochet and then a corner, and that is basically how you work it up. So for round 5 you would have 5 groups on each side and then chain 2 for the corners. Round 6 you would have 6 groups and so on. And you can either make lots of little granny squares and sew them together to make a blanket, cardigan, whatever you like, or keep going round and round and round, building it up to make a nice big blanket. So there it is, that is how I make my granny.